it may be time to sign the Arcanine Hisui apology form, because this Pokemon was everywhere in Regulation E. It was winning regionals left and right. It had no business not being on a team. Regulation F came along and nowhere. It was nowhere to be seen until Portland Regionals last weekend, where Ryan Haig managed to get top 8 with Hisuian Arcanine on that Latias team. And I'm going to be honest, guys, I am not a big believer in Hisuian Arcanine, or was not a big believer in Hisuian Arcanine. It is kind of creeping back into the meta now, and I do think rightfully so. I think it does have a place. So we're going to talk about today why it has a place, why it disappeared, and will it continue seeing play moving forward in Regulation F. Of course, guys, this is meant to be a discussion video, so let me know your thoughts about Hisuian Arcanine down below. Does it indeed have a place, or is it outclassed by the likes of Incineroar and Entei? So to begin, we start off with why I think Arcanine disappeared in the first place. And obviously, it's a little bit of new toy syndrome because we had Entei to play with. We had Incineroar to play with, right? We got both those big fire type pieces back with the addition of Regulation F. And having both those options just made Arcanine feel like it was a middling speed tier. Not speed tier, but a middling tier. It's kind of the middle of both of those, right? You have Incineroar if you're looking for that really bulky, that pivot mon, that intimidate mon that can cycle into intimidate, throw out some flare blitzes if it needs it. Right, Incineroar was that extreme side of the scale, right? It was the bulky piece, that's what it was going for. And Arcanine was never really that, right? It wasn't really fully bulky, but it could be bulky if you made it bulky. You have the Intimidate, so similar roles. But then on the other side, you tend to see Arcanine go Choice Band, hyper offense stuff, you know, Tailwind spam, Rock Slide spam, Flare Blitz, just do big damage. But now you have Entei. And Entei comes into this format and says, hey, use me. I'm a fire type. I'm offensive. I can't get intimidated because of inner focus. And plus, I can't get faked out because of inner focus. I also get access to extreme speed just like Arcanine did. Go ahead and slap me on a team instead. Why are you using this Arcanine guy? And both of those are the two extremes, right? Entei feels like it's the super offensive version. Incineroar feels like it's that, oh, I'm going to be super strong, going to be super balancy Pokemon, which it should be. And those are the two roles for those Pokemon. Arcanine is somewhere in between there. Where in between there depends on how you want to play it. Now, the question is, why would I ever use a Pokemon that's a worse offensive variant of Entei or a worse bulky variant of an Incineroar? And the answer to that is roll compression. Similar to how Ogerpon Water compresses your rolls if you're running Amoonguss, right? Amoonguss is a grass type redirector that doesn't necessarily have an ability to have a water type attack. Ogerpon allows you to have a grass type redirector and a big water type. So if you had Amoonguss and a water type on your team before, you could theoretically compress those rolls into one slot into the Ogerpon Water. Now, I'm not saying this is always the best way to approach team building, but sometimes you need to compress a couple rolls so you can open up another slot on your team to be able to do something a little more. And in my opinion, this is where Arcanine sees its usage, and this is why Arcanine is seeing play in Regulation F, because it does allow you to compress those rolls, right? Oh, I have a big fire type Pokemon. I want a big fire type offensive threat with my Choice Banded Entei or a big Life Orb Entei. Now I have to maybe not have Intimidate somewhere else on the team. But hold on a second. I really want Intimidate on this team, but I can't fit it anywhere. Well, now all of a sudden Arcanine can come in. It can still be that big Choice Banded attacker, that big offensive piece, but it allows you to have that Intimidate play and allows you to maybe cycle in and Intimidate here or there whenever you need it. And just compresses those roles of, instead of having Entei and needing an Intimidator on your team somewhere else, you compress that into one role and you say, hey, Arcanine gets the job done really, really well. And at the end of the day, Banded Rock Slide with a chance to flinch is always going to hit pretty hard, right? You also have the concept of Incineroar. Maybe Incineroar doesn't hit as hard as I would like, but I really like the value that I get from Intimidate. Well, all of a sudden, maybe Arcanine still gives me that fire type slot, gives me the value that I would normally get out of Intimidate, actually is not, resists the Fluttermane's attacks, rather than being neutral to them, right? So maybe Arcanine slips into that slot, allows you to put on a little bit more pressure with your Intimidator. And there are 3 teams that have just kind of popped up recently that I'm going to talk about on Arcanine right now. And we're going to start with Ryan Haig's Portland team. And this team should look awfully familiar. This team has been around. It has been the balanced team of the format with the Latias, the Lando, the King Gambit, the Ogerpon, the Fluttermane. And of course, that slot is normally an Incineroar. What I like about Ryan's team is they said the team was rather passive, right? Sometimes they would end up bringing like Incineroar, Ogerpon, Latios, Fluttermane, and your only real damage dealer in that case would be a Fluttermane. If Ogerpon got intimidated down, you really wouldn't be able to do too much. And Fluttermane, sometimes being as frail as it is a hard piece to keep around on the field. So having the ability to have pressure with Arcanine feels really, really strong, right? Sometimes that Incineroar would get cycle. Yes, Incineroar has its usages, but Ryan said, you know what? I want a little bit more pressure from this fire type slot. And I think it was a really, really good call going into Portland. And obviously speaking, because they did manage to finish top 8. But that is the first case of where we really saw Hisuian Arcanine come out into the format. Now, last night in the Himi Turner online tournament, we had 160 entries. We had Hisuian Arcanine get top 8. Yes, get top 8 and 10th. So top 8 and a top 16 for Hisuian Arcanine. Of course, this one went with a little bit of a different approach and a more bulky option with the Terra Grass on that Hisuian Arcanine up here, rocking Flare Blitz, Rock Slide, Extreme Speed, and Protect. Once again, this one looks like it's functioning as an Entei, but a more defensive Entei, right? As opposed to having like just sending that fire type with big offense. But you also didn't want Incineroar because maybe Incineroar doubled up on dark type with Shenpao. Maybe Incineroar didn't have enough offensive pressure, where Arcanine still has that ability to go on the offense, still can be pretty supportive with that Citrus Berry, nice and bulky with the Terra Grass as well, right? So you can go on offense, you can go on defense, and I think besides Shenpao, it makes a lot of sense because you have the ability to go crazy, you have the to go crazy offense, you have the ability to stay back, play a little bit more controlled. And this is a really cool team to see, and I wasn't sure if Citrus Berry Arcanine was going to be a thing. I saw it creeping back into the metagame, and I was fully expecting the only way that this Pokemon was going to be good was going to be with that Choice Band as kind of like that Entei with a Intimidate. So seeing it here with the Citrus Berry is a really cool tech as well. Something I didn't really expect to see, but something I'm kind of happy to see, you know? And once again, you've got that core again. The Ogerpon, the Fluttermane, and that Fire type. That's going to be a core. That core is going to be very strong throughout the metagame. We saw it on Ryan's team. We're seeing it on Bread's team here. And of course, you are going to not see it on the 10th place team from the Himi tournament last night. Although this one is a little bit more, they said, I am actually just going to become an Entei. I am going to be Terra Normal. I'm going to be Choice Banded, and I am just going to send damage, right? Which is completely fair. This is a very cool team, by the way, right? I'm assuming, I don't know much about the Ursaluna Blood Moon. I don't know if it's fast or slow. Given the fact that they do not have a Trick Room option, I would imagine this is a pretty quick Ursaluna Blood Moon to be able to take advantage of a Tailwind. I'm not sold on the double choice items, but you know what? Hey, if it works, it works. You know what? They got top 16, so clearly they had to be doing something right? But more importantly, what we're focused on here is this Arcanine. As you see it here, we see it performing really well in these last few tournaments. So the question now becomes is, does Arcanine stick around in the metagame? And I am going to say yes. This Pokemon has a lot of good things going for it. We've seen it in Regulation E, guys. It won at least 6 regionals. I'm probably missing a few in there as well. But this Pokemon was dominant in Regulation E. A Pokemon like this does not just fall off. Obviously, it wasn't seeing a lot of play in Regulation F, but that's mainly because, in my opinion, that new toy syndrome. Oh, I've got an Incineroar. Oh, I've got an Entei. Oh, I've got a Gouging Fire. Hey, if you wanted a Fire type, that works too, right? But I don't think Gouging Fire is really one of the reasons Arcanine falls off. I think those two serve pretty different roles. But regardless, Arcanine is here, right? There were new toys to play with for the Arcanine, for this Arcanine slot, right? I wanted to test my new fire types. I wanted to play around. Maybe, I don't think there was a new Intimidator that came around outside of Incineroar, so saying new fire types covers that option as well. But Arcanine is not going anywhere, guys. This Pokemon is going to come back. It is going to be good, and you have to make sure you have answers to it, because the extra addition of rock typing is actually really strong for an offensive piece, because anytime you can do Rock Slide and do big damage, you get the potential to add effect of flinch, right? Sometimes you just have a Rock Slide. It's like, oh, I'll go for a flinch. And you're doing like 3 points of damage, and you just need like 18 flinches in a row to win an endgame. But with Hisuian Arcanine being that stab rock slide, you have the ability to just launch big damage with this piece, and you get the added benefit of going for a flinch if you need it, because you can probably hit really, really hard with Rock Slide. We've seen it in all of Regulation E. There's not a lot of switch-ins to a banded Arcanine, right? Rock Slide hits really, really hard. There's not too many things that are actually hitting the flying types in this format either right now. So having Arcanine be capable of hitting those flying types in the format, like the Tornadus, if anything were to want to Terra Flying as well, right? Just keeping your grass type pieces alive. There are numerous reasons to start using Arcanine. Like I said, it's one of those middle options, right? It's not completely swung to offense. It's not completely swung to defense. It's somewhere in the middle. And you can use it as that form of a roll compression on your team. I think we're going to be curious to see... I'm going to be curious to see how Arcanine actually develops throughout the rest of Regulation F. But that's going to do it for me, guys. I decided to take a more discussion-based approach on the video today. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys want to see more of these, less of these. You say, Ryan, this video was a big miss. Why'd you put it out on YouTube? Just let me know, guys, what you think down below. Really curious on to what you think of this new style of format. But with that, that is going to do it for me, guys. If you do enjoy the content, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. But with that, I'm going to get on out of here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you all in a future video.